everyone, and welcome to the final round of the 2021 College Championship. I'm La Tigress, and I am oh so delighted to be joined by Raz and TJ. Raz, straight from the MSI desk to the College Championship. Do you only have a go button?
Yes, but I mean, like, it's damn good to be here for the collegiate championships and like watching the player stories come up. You need to see it. This is where it all starts.
Yep, right here, right now. TJ, it has been a bit since we have had such an official collegiate championship here. What do you make of the journey thus far?
Yeah, with COVID being canceled last year, it was a little bit of a blower, but everyone's really excited now to play. A little bit unfortunate it's not in studio, but I know all the players are ready to prove that their school is the best school.
And it has been so much fun tracking those matches leading up to this very moment. I mean, from the crucible of those 32 teams that have competed here, we have finally emerged with our top 8 teams here, the best that Collegiate League of Legends has to offer. And Raz, I'm sure there are a lot of fans here from the campuses across that are ready to cheer on their teams.
Yeah, we got a lot, a diverse lineup here. I know today we're going to be seeing Toronto, Bethany, Maryville, Columbia. But I mean, you got to watch the games coming up tomorrow as well. Winthrop and Buffalo for me is going to be a banger. And Harrisburg, Illinois, I think is going to be a treat. So a lot of great games coming up soon.
And as Raz just said, those will be happening tomorrow. We do have 4 teams today that will be fighting for their spot in the semifinals. So let's go ahead and look at today's teams, shall we? First up on deck in our first match of the day, from Toronto, Ontario, the longest active team in this round of the tournament, and the alma mater of Biofrost himself, University of Toronto. But they will be challenged by a team who went undefeated in their conference this year, and who claim to have 3 of the best players in the universe, and at the same time, the most fun of any esports program in the nation. That's Bethany Lutheran College's Bethany Vikings. And later today in our second matchup from St. Louis, Missouri, a team with too many accomplishments to name in one introduction, we got our defending champions, it's Maryville University. And facing off against them from Columbia, Missouri, their perennial rival with a hunger to finally claim a title for themselves, Columbia College's Cougars. Oh, I am so excited to get to see all of these players take to Summoner's Rift today. I do want to start digging a bit deeper into the teams that will be competing. Let's start things off, TJ, with the University of Toronto and what they have to offer.
Yeah, so the University of Toronto, they have a bunch of friends on their team. They've really touted that they all really enjoy playing with each other and they just like to hang out outside of the game all the time. And so I'm really excited to see who the next stars will be coming from the school because they've already had players like Ari, Engo, and JJ come out of University of Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, like, for the university as a whole, it feels like they've just been getting stronger and stronger in a pretty competitive Eastern Conference. The past 2 years for them has been great, having to deal with Western University, Waterloo, and York. And if we're just talking about the team, as you mentioned, like being friends, I think they're just a great team fighting team. They had a banger of a series versus Purdue where they lost the first game and were behind in the second, but found crucial moments in their games to come back, and game 3 was just a slaughter. It's great to see this team play. You always have to watch out for them as the game goes on.
Yeah, that's the thing about University of Toronto. It's not just these exciting members that you see before you, but as TJ had mentioned, this is a university that's been churning out superstars since they really founded the program. One of the first ones we really got to see performing at this level. So I think it's very in line for us to highlight, one of the superstars that is currently on this roster that we may be seeing really rocket on the Rift today. Let's start with their Kong, or pardon me, their King. We've got Donkey coming through today.
What a damn good name, actually. The moment I heard this player's name, I was like, I bless the casters that have to be able to say it. Like, he's been with the team, the university, for the 2 years, so he's been since 2019. The champions carries. I think he is a center point for this team. In game 2, he was the reason why they got back in off his Jin Zhao, getting that triple kill on the bots out of the map. And then in game 3, he had 2 kills instantly off of a failed invade from Purdue on his Nidalee pick, and they rallied behind him and he carried them through. Donkey, for me, is the player to watch it. He's the key player for me in the squad.
Right, we know that he doesn't play like a donkey because he plays only carries, right? He's more than happy to pull out the Nidalee, the Lee Sin, and just snowball games. So I'm looking very much forward to seeing how he plays.
You can see the champions that he highlighted there on his info. We know what kind of player you are, Donkey, and we're going to be tracking you through these games to see what you bring through. But what is a jungler without their mid laner, right? He's going to be looking to the rest of his team to show up. So let's talk about DefRef here in the mid lane, TJ.
Yeah, DefRef, he hits Challenger every season. He was known as a Talon one-trick for a long time, but he's since started to branch out. He plays some really unique champions like Mordekaiser, and most interestingly, his Swain is feared. He's more than willing to play this mid lane, but also in differing roles. And since they're all friends, they're all cool with, hey, you know what, let's just lane swap this game.
That's what makes it really scary going up against this team, is because you literally don't know, first of all, which player is going in which lane. Although DefRef is a damn good mid player, and game 3 versus Purdue, hopped on towards his Talon, found a great dive bot lane, and was a nail in the coffin for Purdue in the round of 16. Yeah, he's incredible, and going into this series, as you said, if the draft looks good for him to go into support, there he goes, and he was doing well in that game too. So this team is unexpected at best.
I do hope we actually get to see the Talon though, and then by the end of the day, we're either sick of it and never want to see it again, or we're saying, let's go Talon all the way. But it's not like this team isn't going to have competition on the other side, moving right along to their opponents. Let's talk about the journey that Bethany's Vikings have taken to get here to today.
Yeah, for me, this team, last year, they had Wizardess as their jungler and didn't qualify. This time, much better, a much stronger team. He went towards the AD carry position, and I think they're just a really well-oiled machine. Around Soluro and also towards the Hollywood, I think their front line is incredibly strong. Solura, on his picks, I know he has a damn mean Ornn, but in his Shen game, he had fantastic plays. And if you have frontliners like these, their backline can play as wildly as they can. Bradley and Wizardish are stylish players, so I think for me, they're the team to beat.
Right, and just like we highlighted UofT as a group of friends, it's really important to note that Bethany is also a very good group of friends. They love hanging out, they do a lot of events outside of League, and so having those team players willing to say, hey, I'll enable you to carry this game, is what's going to help them succeed today.
There are so many of these teams where they just genuinely enjoy being around their teammates. And I mean, let's talk about one of those players that TJ just mentioned. We've seen them in other forms of competition. There is one player in particular who makes his opponent's blood run cold. I want to know more about Bradley because he has been tearing it up in many ways this year.
Yeah, so Bradley, previously known as CP Freeze, he's a jack of all trades. He's willing to play the assassins, he'll play the mages. He loves outskilling enemies with Akali and Aurelia. It's really, really interesting to see him play, and his coach describes him as an 80-20 coin flip, where 80% of the time he will win the team the game, and 20% he will lose. So it'll be interesting to see what side of the coin it lands on today.
See, I love that risk-taking nature. I remember seeing his Red Bull 1v1 tournament that he was a part of and went the distance in, where, yeah, I love watching his Lucian play. And this team, I think, is a great double AD carry squad. I think they play well around him playing Lucian and Corki, just because you have full confidence that, sure, he'll take risks, but most of the time, as you said, they come up with a lot of treasure off that, a lot of gold in these team fights. I think having players like these is a big positive.
Even if 20% of the time is some smooth brain moments, 80% of the clutch wins. I think that's enough to get real excited about having Bradley on your team. But the other players on the team also deserve some highlights. We've talked about some that have served in other roles prior. So what we have seen from Wizardish so far, I mean, he's really looking to make some magic here today, Raz.
Yeah, when he swapped the role, as we bring this up, I was interested to hear from him, like, what he thinks his champion pool is, because what I saw from his play was exceptional Kaisa play, and he just comes out and says whatever is meta. Like, give him anything. It's crazy to see this. I think watching this team, you'll fall in love with their backline. We already talked about Bradley, but for sure Wizardish is the type of player that if he sees a moment to flash forward, he'll do it. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him play.
Yeah, so he actually played jungle before, swapping day to carry, and he would play Olaf regardless of meta. So when he's saying he'll play whatever's meta, he'll also go off meta. So I'm excited to see if he'll pull out any of his unique bot lane picks, like Brand bot lane or any of the other mages, where the enemy team just might not be practiced against it.
Ooh, spicy. Well, if that is the case, though, before we get into the game itself, quick reactions from both of you, or predictions rather. TJ, I'm coming to you first. Who's going to be taking this best of 3 series?
I think Bethany will win, but I think it'll be a 2-1. And I think it'll be decided based on the jungle matchup, if Donkey is able to snowball or not. I have a feeling Hunter as a player will be able to keep him down.
Look, I know Bethany's looking strong, but I got to go with the boys from the 6, all right? I'm saying right here, Toronto's going to come in clutch. All of Canada rally behind University for Toronto, and I think they'll take this.
The Toronto Raptors fan in here cheering for Toronto in the Collegiate Championship. I believe it from the side of Raz. All right, I think we're ready to get into the game. Pastry and Crumbs will be bringing us the call. Let's get to it.
Thank you very much, Tigers. All of Canada, Crumbs. I guess that means you're rallying behind them as well, but it should be a very fun day of games. In fact, a fun week of games. Collegiate, always a great time in League of Legends esports. And honestly, Crumbs, I'm most excited for the things that we don't usually expect from competitive League, right? Maybe some different picks, maybe some more comfort, maybe some signature champions. I think there's a lot of spice potentially here for the games we'll see this week.
And I think the foundation for that spice was well highlighted by the analysts. That's the fact that both these teams in this first matchup are really into being friends outside of the game. That's something that professional teams strive towards, to being able to have that synergy that allows you to not only trust your teammates, but be a little bit more flexible inside the game. So many of the responses that we heard from the surveys that we asked our players revolve around being able to trust your teammates and being able to make a play and know that if it goes right or it goes wrong, they've got your back. That's what we see here in Collegiate.
Right, and that's one of the the foundations of why you play team sports in school, right? Whether it's high school or now in college. Even if not all these players necessarily want to go pro, and certainly a good handful of them, if not quite a large majority of them, do at least want to try their hand there. It is important to build skills at working with other people and learning what it's like resolving conflict in a team environment and all those kind of things. So it's always fun when you see teams with really close-knit players, because you do often get some plays that you might not see otherwise, because they're willing to take risks together because they've just got so much experience kind of running those plays.
I really love that aspect about games, because I was in the position that so many of these players were initially. Maybe their family wasn't entirely behind it, but once you get to be in a team, you really understand there's a lot of life skills that directly transfer from playing professional video games to whatever other things you want to do outside of it. So that's one of my favorite things about working as a team. You really get to learn a lot that can apply far beyond League of Legends.
All right, well, for now, Crumbs, it's all about League of Legends. First draft is up here on the board here. UOT eSports over on the blue side. It is red here for Bethany Vikings, Shen, Rel, and Galio, plus Morgana. So kind of some stuff we used to see before. Morgana, obviously, the one of the best junglers in the meta right now. If you had a look at MSI at all, you'll definitely know that pick. So curious to see, how close will we stick to that? And again, how close do we stick to the generally accepted champions? Again, there's lots of individual picks and signature picks here across the board for these 10 players. So definitely expect the unexpected, but maybe game one will be a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, I think to expect that is Udyr. I mean, this is 11.2, so the last games these guys played were in 11.9, and with Morgana and Rumble Band, this to me tells me, Donkey, you got a great opportunity to pick Udyr. The hardest matchup you had with the Morgana's Black Shield is already removed off the table, and if UOT eSports doesn't take it, that opens it up for Bethany eSports. The fast clearing that was previously available to him is still there, and now you just have a bigger window to clear, to mess around with the other jungler being such a strong skirmisher early on.
All right, well, it is Thresh instead, so that is a very bold first pick. Oh my goodness, we have Gwen already. Wow. I was going to remind everyone, Gwen and Viego are enabled, by the way. That is something that hasn't been true for quite a while in Viego's case, and Gwen, of course, the newest champion to the league, wasn't available in the last international, but Gwen Nautilus here for Bethany eSports. Very curious where the Gwen is going, and Donkey is apparently going to get Udyr second pick, which is maybe the reason they wanted to pick Thresh. Perhaps Bethany just aren't feeling comfortable on that champion.
Or it could be the Gwen jungle. You and I were talking about this beforehand. Gwen could have a place there. In solo lane, she doesn't have that great of matchups. She can be blind picked, but if the other team knows how to pick into her, things that outrange her, it can be really difficult for the Gwen to play it out. But on red side, I think they're taking advantage of the flexibility. It's something that these new champions have a lot. People still don't know where they fit, so being able to blind her in red side,
my goodness, what is going on? This is almost like a perfectly polarizing champ select, right? On the one hand, it's like the picks you're used to seeing from MSI, right? You know, Thresh is a constant fixture and competitive. Lee Sin, Udyr, maybe some of the best solo laners / junglers in the meta right now. And on the other side, we got Gwen, Nautilus, and now Nunu and Willump here joining the fray.
I think, okay, the Nunu has to be in the jungle. You're not going to solo lane this champion. You can play him like Faker likes to play Nunu in the mid lane, but it's already just something that 100% UOT eSports doesn't have practice against this. You don't have practice against Gwen. So they're going with the element of surprise on the red side to try to take away what is the more meta approach from UOT eSports. So as a fan of non-meta champions, I'm going to be rooting for the red side here because I love to see you just challenge the conventional and see if you can come up with a way to just dethrone what is already previously thought to be the best champions, because this looks like a draft from MSI like we were just talking about.
All right, well, Swain Ban, that's a good one, not only because it is a specialty of Deathwrath, if I recall correctly, but you do need to take away some of the potential AP options here, and that is something they could have played maybe mid or bottom lane, with Lee Sin presumably being a solo laner in this comp. I don't think you want to play Udyr solo lane, but I'll reserve my judgment until the players are out on the Rift. Varus also going to be banned away, another very strong champion from tournaments past, but Lucian, again, continuing the trend of strong AD solo laners, is also going to get taken away on the UOT side.
Lucian, and just another strong solo lane, most likely, because you already have a lot of melee champions on the side of UOT eSports, so you don't want to be dealing with all the front line that you already have on the Bethany side, and on top of that have ranged solo lanes to both. So also dealing with the all-in kind of supports and AD combos with the Nautilus that could be dangerous for the Thresh, as Nautilus is already pretty good into this Thresh pick. And I was gonna even consider the team honestly at this point with that hover, like you guys do what you want.
Oh my goodness, Draven, really? Draven, Nautilus, we'll see. Samira was banned, Lucian was banned. Those are two very aggressive ADs. One of them often is in the solo lane, but Kai'Sa makes perfect sense with Nautilus. So a little bit more normalcy on the Bethany eSports side, but still a very exciting draft here, as we'll see how University of Toronto eSports want to finish off this one.
There's a lot of engage on the side of Bethany eSports between the Nautilus, the Nunu, and the Gwen to follow up. It's going to be really tricky to deal with that long-range follow-up as well from the Kai'Sa. The Thresh is going to have a really hard time landing these hooks against Gwen as well. The Shroud is really tricky to deal with, especially when you already have only Lee Sin as your main form of engage. It's going to be the Mordekaiser locked in, so it could be flexed into mid, but I think it probably will be saved until you see what Bethany is going to last pick.
Yeah, I think I like this pick a lot, though. They did need some, diversity in their damage profile. So Tristana, being a good hyper carry, you want to take it. It's just a very good, consistent pick. But Kled is going to be the last one here for Bethany. So Nunu jungle, Nautilus, Kai'Sa bottom lane, Gwen mid, Kled top.
Yeah,
this is my best bet, Crumbs, but not what I expected. Waking up this morning ready to cast some League of Legends. I'll tell you that much.
Not at all. I mean, they're gonna just zoom at you, right? With the Nautilus and the Kled following up on Nunu, they're going to be so fast that the Mordekaiser, I think, could be the last pick that can really throw a wrench in the Bethany eSports plan. Because you take somebody out of that mix, you immediately take away part of the engage, make it that much weaker, and a lot of these tanks won't have a defense mechanism against Mordekaiser, but they got to get past the early game, and that's a phase where Udyr can be so devastating.
Yeah, I think both these teams are going to look to go at each other pretty early on. Again, it does very much feel like, a very standard draft on one side and a very non-standard draft on the other side, which is a fun meeting for these two schools early on here as teams look to crown themselves the college champion. Very fun way to kick things off here, but I would typically favor the consistency of a draft a little bit better, or at least we know a little bit better. But that being said, I think in this kind of tournament, it can often be down to what you're comfortable with, and especially like which of your star players is playing well that day, and making sure you play something comfortable, making sure you play something that you're like fully attuned with is maybe more important than, picking the good champions, let's say.
Especially for the momentum in the best of series, just opening with a strong showing can be enough to just catch your opponent off guard, and suddenly game 2 becomes that much easier. And with that being said, though, the momentum that you're going to have to build it's going to have to come down from the mid lane. You've got melee champions versus each other. Kled, a part of the Mordekaiser versus the Gwen with a Nunu and a Nudir jungle. There's going to be such a bloodbath in that mid lane. I feel like the junglers have to prioritize this lane. The supports, both hook champions, want to go up there. And it's even more important because none of them have good wave clear. If you start falling behind, you just have to keep fighting.
Yeah, this could be a very snowbally game, so we'll have to keep track. But again, we talked up a lot of these players. I think Bradley on the Bethany side, this mid lane that is very flashy, very stylish. Gwen is certainly the kind of champion that you can make some pretty big highlight plays on. And I like the confidence, right? Being like, I will play the newest champion in the game at maybe one of the most important tournaments of my entire career, and I'm gonna make it work. At least that's the hope on the Bethany side.
It's entertaining and it's smart because so many times the newest champions end up being very strong, and if they're not very strong, just the element of surprise is often enough to catch your opponent off guard because maybe the mid lane knows how to play against Gwen, right? We'll assume that Mordekaiser knows exactly what he's doing, but does the entire team have practice against Gwen in a team fight? Do they know what she's going to be doing? So it's not just a single player that has to understand the matchup, it's the team as a collective knowing how to mark her, how much damage she can do, so it can be a really big advantage if, say, the support doesn't have an idea of how to play against Gwen, or the AD carry just sees her and suddenly, bam, gets blown right up.
Yeah, I know you said that jungle, as always, is going to be important here, because I think both solo lanes are very volatile. I think, in the top lane, it's kind of funny, each team got a counterpick, right? So Gwen got counterpicked by Mordekaiser, and Lee Sin got counterpicked by Kled. Assuming, Bethany kind of lined things up and figured out where the laners were likely to go, I think they can make pretty reasonable assumptions about what was going to happen here, but let's find out what happens here in our first game of the day, because boy, oh boy, do we have a spicy draw for you.
Well, we have the double conqueror in the mid lane, both running the defensive tree as well, so I'm more interested in the fact that Bradley has gone with a Doran's Blade here, so gonna be very aggressive here against Mordekaiser, and I think Mordekaiser's Q does outrange Gwen's, so she's gonna have to be dashing in, queuing as well to actually get damage onto the Mordekaiser, or else it's going to be taking free harass.
Yeah, Mord, not a champion you want to give too much room to if possible. Definitely can dodge around a lot of his damage, but can be tricky, especially given that Gwen is pretty short range. It's one of her big disadvantages, but if she's in your face and winning the trade, especially if Conqueror, which they do both have in the mid lane, is going off, she can be awfully frustrating, almost like an AP fighter, if you will. As Ward does get cleared out nice and early. Again, tracking these junglers is going to be wild here. Udyr is one of the fastest, one of the best junglers currently in the metagame, and Nunu is Nunu. He's kind of always been around, right, alongside Willem, but Bradley already off to a pretty roaring start here, but Defref does get that Q down nice and early.
Nunu is a decent clearer. He's definitely going to be helped by the fact that the camp spawned a little bit later, but I think his strength is the ganking. In solo queue, it absolutely is his strength. It catches everyone off guard. The snowball coming either from river or from the lane can be so difficult to dodge that it often is too late by the time you see it, and you need to get deep wards against him, or else he's going to find these ganks. He's not the kind of jungler that you can shallow ward because he's not looking for those opportunities. He needs that distance to be able to build a snowball that is really worthy of getting a multi-man knockup, and so making sure that Donkey keeps an eye on when Nunu is going is going to be integral for them to make sure that this pick doesn't snowball like it typically does in the solo queue games of Nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, not too slow, right, as a champion. Definitely not as slow as the Nunu of 10 years ago, Crumbs, that I know you and I will both remember. I guess not fondly for you, given that you were a jungler.
I loved him. I loved him.
Okay, you're that guy, huh?
Yes, that was me. Free Smite, free Baron in the 20 minutes. You still have that play available with him, though. So objective control with Nunu is a huge element of his gameplay.
Yep, for sure. Definitely still have the power of Consume. So we'll see how that all works out here. As bottom side, going just fine, actually, here. For Bethany, Wizardish and Hollywood off to a good start. These are definitely players we'll be keeping an eye on here. This dual lane and Wizardish in particular. Pretty phenomenal player when he does get things going, but it does seem like the early push here is in favor of Bethany across the board. In fact, Bradley navigating very well here up against this Mordekaiser early on, up 12 CS already, although Defref will catch up as he gets the rest of these.
I like what I'm seeing out of Donkey here. He recognized that Gwen had pushed in the mid lane, the bottom lane was pushing as well, and that he wasn't going to be able to get the crab. So he path to the top side, gets a scuttle, and now has an opportunity for first blood.
Oh goodness, Donkey up on the top side. Salura get out of there. Does get stunned up. Lee Sin Q lands, dismounted, needs to get the courage back, but it's not going to happen. That is first blood on the table and collected by Udyr.
Really smart pathing there by Udyr. And on top of that, the wave was in a perfect spot with Lee Sin and Kled fighting. He wanted to crash the wave, thought there was an opportunity to kill Lee Sin, but when he flashed forward, that was his undoing. He at least has teleport to get back to the lane and not miss out on much, but now Udyr is off to a roaring start.
And this is the thing, right? Kled can't really get away with, like, not getting aggressive, right? That's the whole reason he picked the champion. So Salura does need to play up and is duly punished by Donkey as a result with that nice quick clear. So we'll see if it is answered here at mid lane, because an awfully big snowball is breezing on by, but we'll take a look at the top side once again. Crumbs here. Salura already dismounted, actually.
It's good timing, too, because of the ward was about to fade, so you only needed to wait a little bit longer had Salura not been this aggressive. But when he flashed in, there really was just no way out. He has a little bit of damage that scares 527 to actually flash away, but that flash won't mean much later on since Lee Sin is so mobile. Kled is typically the champion that will punish immobile champions. You can dash forward, land that bear trap, and then suddenly they get hooked back in. But as long as you save your safeguard, you'll never be in true danger of Kled all-inning you.
Yeah, Lee Sin as a soul laner is just very safe and very consistent, which I think is one of the reasons people like him so much, right? You can outplay people, as we saw 527 able to win the early trade that led to that kill in the first place. But even if you are just kind of getting pushed in and falling behind, Lee Sin is actually really good at just like keeping the health topped off and tempesting the wave whenever it comes through. Like I saw Lee Sin mid push in a Victor at MSI Crumbs. That's how I know that Lee Sin solo lane's getting out of hand.
Oh, and when he gets the Iron Spike Whip, that's when it gets nuts. You're maxing E, bam, press E, active. Suddenly the wave is cleared, you have sustain, and you can play really far back and also have gank threat with your kick flash ward hop. So he has everything you want in a solo laner right now. Mordekaiser's about to hit 6, so Gwen.
Good grab. Bradley 6 as well, though, but not going to do too much here in the 2v1. Into stasis he goes, but Defraf not winning the fight in and amongst his own arena. Now Bradley still trying to fight it out. Does get stuns, he pops out. Is going to have to get himself over the wall, and what a flash Q from Maul, but it's not enough as Gwen will get away.
The key move there was Bradley dodging the first Q. This early on, Mordekaiser doesn't have enough cooldown reduction. There's a little bit of follow-up, though.
Oh my god, they're going in. There's the flash Q. Kaiser's here as well. Wizardage. What a roam there as Hunter sets it up, and Hollywood is going to barely get out of it. That's some great acting there by Nautilus.
They saved him. They saved the mid laner, got the kill in return. Even though there's no assist, being able to get that one for your AD carry is huge, though. So Bethany, they're really on point, knowing that's not the first time they look for something. Okay, we're good. We're good in the bot lane.
Yeah, great hook, but unfortunate follow-up there. Just such a good roam by Bethany. I mean, great for Bradley, as you said, to stay alive in the initial play. Now up 2 waves as he moves back to lane. But my goodness, you know, kind of the slowest impending doom ever with the Nunu snowball rolling in. But they had it lined up. Everyone went in, managed to tank exactly the right amount of tower shots. So clearly doing the homework here on the Bethany eSports side, because that was a very well calculated roam, as Wizardage is going to dodge that next Q, and now his support's returned so he can return fire.
So the danger now is going to be in the bot lane from Hollywood if they try to go aggressive, since they burn Flash and Ignite to try to get that kill on the Mordekaiser. So if they get aggressive thinking, oh, we got a kill, we're confident now, we can look for something, that's when they're going to be punished. This is a wave that's pushing in, and Salura will look to crash this if he gets a little bit aggressive. Oh, here's the kick.
Oh, what a kick there. Bear trap maybe not going to go off as a result. Now Donkey trying to run in there, but the clear ult will keep Salura safe. So it has to burn the cooldown, but is A-okay. Does not want to walk that way, absolutely. So we'll move out of the way now. But Hunter, as a result, is going to get the dragon. So not bad, just trading off the top pressure for this Drake, but this dive could be brutal here for the Kled. Have to dismount. Okay, dismount is done. Now what? Courage is building up slowly. The Q is there for Lee Sin, but it's not really safe for Udyr to keep diving, and Salura just needs to kill a few more minions here. Gets that Q, remounts, and now it's an absolute disaster for University of Toronto.
Beautiful use of the mount again from Salura, and this is why Kled was often picked in the meta when you tried to dive into the top lane. 2 lives make it so difficult because in that little time frame, you're also invulnerable. You have a CC, a little bit of a dash as well. And with melee champions that are going to be taking so much more damage than if they were ranged trying to dive you, it was just not going to happen. They got lucky, though, that they went for that dive when Nunu was doing the Dragon Camp. They had no vision about it. There was a control ward there. It was entirely clear from the Bethany Vikings. Had he been in the top side, that could have been really dangerous, but they're still rewarded with an objective for their efforts in the top lane.
Yeah, and Salura surviving could start to spell some troubles here for the early game. Even though University of Toronto actually up 800 gold as I say that, so doing quite well across the board. I guess it's just the mid lane that's really struggling here, although Defref, to his credit, has caught up very nicely on CS. So Bradley was 20 up, now only 10 as that lead has been cut in half. And Little Frosty chilling here as the snowball once again comes through. Hex Flash through. Wizardish finds one in rotation as Donkey is going to be felled. And the Nunu snowball does connect, but it's not quite enough follow-up. But still, they don't need a Hunter. He's just going to yeet on out of there. Is in the arena right now, but Hollywood's body blocking the Spirits as they pop out of the Spirit Realm, and Hunter's going to get out safely.
Bit of a fiasco in the mid lane, but what happened to Donkey? He got soloed by Wizardish, and Wizardish didn't even burn ultimate or flash or exhaust. He must have just been very low in the river looking for something, but that's a free kill over to the Kai'Sa. Red buff as well. She's now getting more gold, just seemingly out of nowhere. Roams into the mid lane, gets a kill. Support roams again, and she finds a kill on her own. That is huge there for Bethany.
Yeah, especially given that Wizardish is actually kind of finding himself at a few more 1v2s than he would maybe like, but oh here it is.
No.
Just going for the crowd. Wizardish is roaming, and this is just perfect.
Just instantly kills him. That's free gold. That's dinner served to your bed. You woke up, it was your day, your loved one served it right up for you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, Wizardish will take you here again. 2-0-0 has the Noon Quiver finished alongside the pickaxe. We do have Hollywood returning, but as I said, Nautilus has been pretty roam-heavy in these last few minutes, especially towards this section of the map, as Bradley looking to leverage that lead into other places. It does seem like the attention is being paid to the mid lane here for Bethany, although again, gold lead's still looking hot here for UOT across the rest of the map. So despite some obvious places where Bethany eSports can look to attack, I think Bradley will be a massive threat come this mid-game. Still looking good, although this Nunu snowball's very nicely timed. Lee Sin, can he safeguard out of this one? Good kick, but it only gets one. Absolute zero. Gets absolute zero damage, but now the Kled gonna redive. It's just too easy. 5-2-7. See you later. As Salura claims the kill.
Ooh, that size of the snowball might have been too big for 527 to actually flash out of that one, and the Nunu gangs continue to be so dangerous. Against the most mobile champion that UofT has, they still found a kill and got his flash for it. They didn't have to burn anything. The fact that that was so successful is now going to swing the advantage that they initially found in the top side and reclaim it for the Kled. He's going to have pressure in this lane from now on, and UofT need to do something about the Nunu and the Nautilus. They have been so effective in just making sure that these lanes play scared, and they are not able to do much if that's the way they need to play. You need to have these lanes being a little bit more aggressive so that Donkey can start finding his own plays.
Oh my goodness, such a sick E there from Bradley. Just dips out from under the incoming claw. Did have a roam from Little Frosty trying to get some pressure happening, but just nothing really to do here against Glenn right now. Again, Bradley still farming up a storm here, 20 CS ahead once again of Defref here in the mid lane. And it's funny, we're going to have battling Rift Makers in the mid lane here. I don't remember the name of the component, but that is the only item it builds into, Crumb, so I guarantee they're building it. Is Bradley going to get aggressive, but Defref not too fussed here.
I think that might be why they're prioritizing the Gwen and the Mordekaiser as well. The changes to the Riftmaker actually made it a lot more viable, especially Mordekaiser is gonna love the change that you can start stacking that just from taking damage. No longer do you actually have to hit your skill shots before you're ramping that up, and that's gonna be a big difference in mauling down these three frontliners that Bethany has. So the fact that Mordekaiser can now deal with these champions much easier, I think makes him a much more viable pick, but just how viable will he be? Not too sure though, since Mordekaiser was really not meta prior to seeing him now from UofT and last game from Defref as well.
All right, well, is a 1v2 there for Seiko mode, so does push Wizardish away with the Buster Shot, but Wizardish did not win that trade, that's for sure, but was just posturing there with Hollywood potentially in range of ulti, and of course they have Ignite, so it's not a bad play to go for, as wards are going to be cleared out as well. Hollywood actually not going to finish off that ward, although puts the control ward down to ensure it does get cleared. Bradley now in mid lane, going to get aggressive as the Rift Tail's going to be spawned as well. Perfect timing now with the wave coming in, have 45 seconds to get these plates, so Bradley will happily collect that gold, and it seems like Bethany will go ahead and take this dragon.
It is the Distraction Herald while the dragon is started. Nunu will be there to secure it, and with Thresh and Mordekaiser approaching from the other side, Bethany can turn on one side if they want to. UofT is split up, so Donkey, if he tries to look for a steal, will really be in a dangerous spot.
Yeah, just going to go over to Nunu again. That Consume making it so easy alongside the Smite. Bradley already dueling Def Ref and winning in the arena once again. The ulti's out, Thread Needle. And right through Mordekaiser goes Gwen as Bradley is going to take out his mid laner.
Oh, and normally Mordekaiser would win those 1v1s, but wait a minute, there's a gank in the bottom lane. What is Sikomo looking for?
It's a nice juke, but I'm not sure it's enough. Going to have to flash instead. Now Wizardish running in hot. Exhaust is down. But now they're just going to fight the Udyr instead. Perhaps the ulti's out. There's a great Nautilus ulti finds two with a knock-up. Needs to get a kill here though as Donkey's going to flash away a little too greedy. Trying to kill Seeker Mode as the double play from Little Frosty is going to turn it back around.
No!
Wizardish though does get the kill before he dies. Are you kidding me?
Oh, the Tristana had one auto that went onto the Nautilus instead of the Kai'Sa. He would have lived had that connected and might have been able to jump and actually take out the Nunu as well. It was so close to being able to turn that. And in the meantime, the 1v1 that happened in the mid lane. But first, okay, let's take a look at this because I hope we get to go all the way to the end. It's a nice dodge here, but he's already getting slowed. He has to flash away before the root connects. Does not have ultimate. That's the key thing. He's not able to get anybody else out. And while everybody connects, here's where they're now tanking the turret shots. To watch Tristana's auto attacks. Goes onto the Kai'Sa. One more onto the Kai'Sa. One more. And here, it goes onto the Nautilus.
Right.
Oh, that one could have been it. It really could have been it.
All right, at least gets the trade, but Wizardish gets away with it there in the bottom lane. 4-1-0 now on the Kai'Sa. With 150 extra gold, has the Kraken Slayer already completed alongside Boots too, so feeling pretty good on the Bethany side of the map. It's almost 2,000 gold ahead, up 2 Drakes and 3 Mythics in the midsection of the map there. It's Frostfire done for Hunter there as well, alongside that Riftmaker that both the mid laners have completed. So with mid lane outer being finished off as the extension of that bottom side pressure as well after Bradley won that 1v1. Lots of space now for Bethany to look to really take over this mid game.
I want to see how that 1v1 plays out again, because last time the big difference was Bradley already had Riftmaker while Def Ref was still on components. The action just never stops, so let's first see how this turns out.
Nunu ganks are so funny here. There's going to be the root. TP in as well, but it's 3v2 right now. Nautilus is here, 3v3. Take it back as Donkey's up top as well. Hunter is going to be the target on the UOT side, but Hollywood's going to get himself out of there. Has to move away from Defra, who's going under the tower as well, but it still hits him. Don't forget his Hunter low will be felled by 527. Now in a 1v4. As Salura is going to have to get out of there. Does Kled ult to safety, but is going to be okay.
Beautiful teamwork there out of UofT, knowing that Gwen, sitting in the bot lane, doesn't have teleport. So Mordekaiser can freely join. The rest of the squad can collapse. Kai'Sa's in the mid lane, just shoving up. They're just going to lose a little bit of CS in the mid lane and probably the tier 1 in the bottom lane. But getting plays on the enemy, getting flashes away is exactly what they need. They might be able to get this turret as well. Let's see if 527 lives. Yep, he's not threatened by the Khaled. He's too mobile and still has kick to disengage.
Yeah, just going to be a trade here as well. Salura, I think maybe just wanted to clear the wave, but didn't have Goldrinker up. So wasn't able to do that too quickly. And we saw it already, and you mentioned it, Crumbs. 527, even without the whip, obviously. I saw him with Goldrinker, but he just deletes waves by clicking the item and clicking E. So we'll see. Watch this one again. Hunter trying it again. Nunu's so frustrating, but just not enough reinforcements here on the Bethany side.
And the rest of the UofT team is already on the way. Tristana is a little bit slow, but by the time that Udyr and Mordekaiser are already here, they're just really outmanned when it comes to firepower. It's the support and the jungler that have very low damage on the side of Nunu and Nautilus. So if you're taking an even numbers trade, if it were against support and jungle, maybe it'd be the same, but you're dealing with a mid laner that might be 0-2 when that fight started, but has so much more damage and such a much stronger way of dealing with these fights when he just ults the Nautilus away and just runs him down to the turret and kills him.
All right, well, 18 minutes through. Next Dragon's up in 40 seconds. It could be a very quick Mountain Soul on the Bethany side as Nunu once again spinning the snowball down to the bottom half, but this time it's another blue TP. Red one follows in shortly after, but already 527's in there. Bradley trying to kite things out as Hunter looking to run away, but he's trapped inside the Spirit Realm once again, trying to duel the Mordekaiser, which is not what he wants. Absolute Zero is out of there. 527 looking to make it happen there as Defref does take down Hunter finally, but now Bradley still fighting it out. But again, it's a 1v5 for Gwen, and now for Salura, as it's just going to be absolute mayhem here in the bottom half of the map. It's University of Toronto with all 5 getting that double kill.
It's the power of teamwork, baby. Saving the game for UofT. It was getting out of hand in the laning phase, but when we're getting into team fights, when the initial turrets are down, UofT have just been so much crisper in having everybody there. They're so fast to have everybody at the same fight. Nautilus and Kaisa were in base, just coming back into the mid lane turret when that fight started. So Bethany Vikings a little bit too ambitious there, going into the tier 2 area of UofT, not respecting how quickly the collapse could happen, because guess what? That's another teleport that's going to be available. So when this fight begins from Nunu and the Gwen, the rest of the team is so far out. Kaisa and Nautilus have just barely made it out, whereas UofT is just gunning it down here. They know that they can stay in here. As long as they keep them interested in this fight, they will win, because reinforcements are coming sooner.
And whoever exhausted Bradley, good job, because Bradley looks so useless despite how much damage he was looking to dish out. And again, Salura, doesn't matter if you can remount here as Kled, you're going to die eventually here. And indeed, it is Tristana that grabs that double. 3 kills total on the play for the University of Toronto, and feeling good. And despite, how well Hunter's been doing with the ganks, how well Bradley's been doing in his 1v1, it is Wizardish that has most of the gold, right? Has all the kills on this side and just hasn't been present for the last 2 team fights there. Kaisa ulti typically feels like it can get you, just about anywhere on the Rift, from a screen away, but got to actually be in the area, and wasn't the case here for Wizardish. We'll see if Bethany, who perhaps look to stick together a little bit more here, as Defref is currently side laning up against Salura. Don't expect him to win, but don't expect him to lose either. Mordekaiser pretty sturdy. Is Bradley going to be the target? Donkey in there with the Udyr. It's just so frustrating, man. Can't run away at all. The bear slaps keep coming. Bradley trying to get out. Dodging away there, snipping away, but it's a 1v3 now that Bradley probably can't win. I take it back! Gets the kill onto Donkey. Gwen damage just too good, man, as Hunter gets kicked away, but the rest of the team is here this time. Wizardish finally arriving exactly what he means to, as Bethany finally fight back.
That's Baron! Everybody's up here. You've got a Nunu. The whole squad is here. Bradley just single-handedly wins the game back for Bethany Vikings. Baron is going to be huge here at 20 minutes. Being able to side lane, which was what they've been trying to do, is going to be so much easier for them now. They were pretty casual, but they tried to go after Gwen, but she just bought so much time with the Riftmaker spell vamp. Does so much damage, just zipping away. It looked like it was going to be nice and easy, but then the slow onto the Lee Sin, making sure that he takes a while to re-engage. Good dodges, and then this key flash, and by the time this already happened, she's already mowed them down. The rest of the squad is here, and Kaisa has finally joined the fight. But just a kill steal, really, since Gwen did all the work.
Just collecting him at the end of it all, as Baron, I believe, did also go over. Indeed, it is now being worn by Bethany. It's a Rift Herald there, little baby Baron. Gonna go in mid and try and take some damage down. That doesn't work, but I like the attempt, but Rift Herald will be killed. No CC withstanding, but Tower stands strong as a result. So still, University of Toronto, no clean area in the mid to work through, and it's them gonna be on the back foot for these next few minutes as they try and battle back from that Baron take.
And that Baron take will probably have to be answered by a team fight. Even though there's no real objective to fight for just yet, the Dragon is going to be up too late before the Baron actually remains on the squad. I think they'll just find each other and look for a fight. It's kind of been the tempo, despite it not being a very bloody game by the standards that we're sometimes used to of a kill a minute. It seems like these teams, the second they see each other, they just have to go for it, and the whole squad collapses every single time. They've learned that you just need to send more people to the fight faster, and that usually is what amounts to a team fight win.
Yeah, I think especially since quite a number of champions on either side are actually pretty good at living for quite a long time, right? Like Udyr is pretty hard to kill, he's pretty fast. Mordekaiser can isolate a 1v1 and buy a ton of time, and Lee Sin is just so slippery. So Bradley, with the Baron buff, is going to take down the top lane outer, which is good news there for Bethany as they look to try and extend this gold lead a little bit further. They've had, you know, this kind of lead already in the game, but Baron, typically you want to try and do significant damage. You know, the minimum typically is you're looking for an inhibitor tower to kind of break open that space for you, so you can look to pressure there. But, you know, taking the 6 towers here off the map will also be pretty nice as far as gold goes. And they are looking at that soul still. I mean, Gwen kind of does the Silas thing, Crumbs, where it's just like, feels like she heals forever and ever and ever and never dies. I can't imagine how frustrating Gwen, you know, with a Mountain Soul is going to be if that's something that University of Toronto have to face.
You know, sometimes when you got a champion like that you just don't deal with in a team fight, that's where Mordekaiser comes in. He's not going to be able to kill Gwen, but you can just get her out, right? If you are less valuable than Gwen is for the enemy team, you just yoink her right out of the fight, and suddenly you trust on your 4v4 to be more effective than theirs, and that could be the difference maker for this next fight. It's going to be 15 seconds for it. It doesn't have to be contested here. They're not in a position since Udyr is not there, and it's just going to put Bethany Vikings that much closer to that mountain. So it's going to be real dangerous, since the only one that's going to be able to mow down these champions is going to end up being Tristana once she has her Lord Dominix completed, but only having a single champion to deal with the sustain and the sheer beefiness of this lineup is not an ideal position.
Yeah, I love that aspect of Mordekaiser for sure. I think the problem is that there's more than one carry on the Bethany side, right? This Kai'Sa also still, you know, the most kills in the game, still worth that extra gold here, and has 2 items approaching 3 pretty swiftly, you have to imagine here, for Wizardish's side. And Kai'Sa also hates getting Mordekaiser ulted, so if you can navigate, you know, using your tools to isolate the different carries, it should be pretty straightforward, because really, it's, you know, 2 threats and a bunch of support, with Kled kind of being disruption more than anything else. That being said, they're pretty slippery threats in Kai'Sa and Gwen, so we'll see if UOT can indeed lock them down. Should feel pretty comfy, right, in this kind of comp. Tristana scales well into just about any kind of game. They've got a lot of different tools to work with, got great pick and support with the Thresh. Just going to be about stopping kind of the incoming snowballs, both the Nunu and the objectives, as Bethany have opened up this game into a pretty comfy spot, but certainly, you know, still in distance for UOT.
Yeah, quite literally stopping the snowball, but the good way to view it is that they're not going to snowball until an objective happens, because they don't have these control mages to siege. None of these comps can really siege against each other, so it's so much harder to pressure when you have these objectives, because you don't have a quick way to delete somebody from a distance. It's only going to be the Kai'Sa. Everybody relies on diving and being in melee range to kill each other, so there's no need to go for these things unless you find a great opportunity to dive, which are so rare as long as a team collapses. So this is why they constantly go into the jungle, looking for somebody to be caught off guard. They barely missed them last time around, but setting up the wards will at least prepare them to look for that opportunity these next time around. It does get trickier, though, to find that engage, since hunters, snowballs will have to deal with the mountain soul terrain, making it a lot harder to get those snowballs around the jungle.
Yeah, going to have to do some pretty good navigation on those ones. But in general, I like this a lot more from Bethany. You know, putting that vision down, covering Bradley, who's looking to split push. I think they, you know, ran into 2 different side lane situations where they weren't ready to respond when didn't have the necessary warding for the info, didn't have people ready with their TPs. This time, I think Bethany, realizing that mistake, ended up being a lot more diligent about having the vision, having the setup proper to support their side laners here. So they can comfortably 1-3-1 here, they can 4-1 as well. I imagine at least Gwen is going to be in a side lane most of the time if she can be, especially given that Bradley is getting pretty close to death cap. In fact, might have it finished already. He's taking a recall now. Oh, not yet. Fakes me out on the minimap. Not going to base just yet. But again, not a whole lot of gold up for Bethany. Under 2,000 is a very respectable lead. It's going to be these objectives that are the big problem, and of course we'll look at that Mountain Soul coming up in just over 2 minutes.
They also have to respect the Baron with the Nunu being around this area, and the Gwen just has so much pressure here. Even when she has TP now, it'll be doubled, just because we already saw what she could do 1v3. So you just sit in the turret and let Gwen do whatever she wants. That's all Bethany Vikings have to count on. Control the Baron side, put Gwen in a side lane, and then just make plays on any other part of the map. And at this stage, though, if they're taking this long to go for the Baron, it just might be a battle going for the Mountain Soul. Being able to get that objective, being permanent, will really be beneficial considering what we already covered, that there's not a lot of damage on the side of the UofT lineup. It's going to be the Tristana primarily. You get these guys so tanky, and it's going to be real difficult. You just deal with the Tristana, which is fairly easy to get her out of the fight. You can just Nautilus ultimate, and she has to disengage, and suddenly everybody else is getting mowed down without any cover fire from Triss.
Yeah, Gwen's pretty annoying too, right? Because when her little bubbles up, Tristana can't really do much, and if you go too far to try and, deal damage to the Gwen, then she can jump on top of you. So we'll see how it's navigated here for Seeker. We've got a lot to do, but does have the 3 items to maybe get it done. In fact, it's 3 for both ADs here. Bradley is actually the whole gold lead though, pretty much, so definitely the burden is on him to make this game kind of happen in the 5v5s here, as Hunter is just going for it with the snowball. Finds through. Now Wizard is just getting in there, and the rest of the squad's going to follow through. Nautilus flashing in. Clegg going to zoom in as well, and just from a whole screen away, Hunter is going to make it happen onto Lil Frosty as Wizard will flash onto Donkey and take him out, and now Seeker mode has been completely denied off this fight as Bradley is yeeting on in there with the rest of the squad, and Bethany are going to keep 5 alive, diving 2 towers, Crumbs.
They can end the game right here. You kill them in front of the base. You've got your AD carry. Clean ace, clean win there out of Bethany eSports. A little bit of a struggle in the mid game once the turrets went down, but once they found the lead back with that Baron, it was lights out for University of Toronto.
Yep, it's going to be the Nexus going over to them, looking awfully good in game number 1. We expected some fun picks, and fun was had, Crumbs.
The Gwen 1v3, that's the story for me. That champion just had such a strong showing already. 11-10, we see the champion back, and it might just earn herself a ban for this next game.
I mean, honestly, especially if you don't have too much experience against the champion, you kind of have to respect it, right? I mean, we know Bradley can clearly play a huge amount of champions, but given what happened in that game, right, you got counterpick, right? You could pretty reasonably expect that Gwen was going mid, and unfortunately Mordekaiser could not neutralize Bradley there. So I don't know if it's more the player than the champion, but certainly I think it's easier to ban it and move on in the best of 3 than it is to, give it to Bradley again and maybe tempt fate. So we'll see what happens. Bethany eSports are going to bring the heat and land the first blow here in this series, but when we return, the State Farm Analyst Test is going to break down that win. Don't go too far.
Welcome back to the College Championship. We are one game deep into our best of 3 series where Bethany Vikings ended up taking down University of Toronto to set the stage here today. We got a couple things to talk about though, because those that are tuning into Collegiate for the first time may not be familiar with some of the picks in the esports context. Raz, what did you make of the way we kicked things off in the draft?
I mean, it showcases specialty around players, right? When you see something like a Thresh pick, you're like, all right, that man's a Thresh player, 100%, right? As a first pick. But then when you see the rest of the draft, Nunu, Kled, and by the end of it, you got to see like what the strategy was for the squad, playing around what was a mid lane Gwen. So I thought it was great to see from Bethany eSports playing around such a pretty team fight heavy composition.
Yeah, and so we did see a good mix of both meta picks and convert picks. So we had the stuff like the Tristana, like the Thresh, but we also had the spicy picks like a Mordekaiser and a Nunu.
Yes. So excited to have seen some of those picks come through. In fact, TJ, I do want to get a bit more of your thoughts on how some of them played out here in the early game, because we immediately saw some action coming through in the mid lane.
Right, so it's actually a really interesting matchup because there's a lot of outplay from both sides, the Mordekaiser versus Gwen. Mordekaiser can take some prio, but Gwen has a lot of interactions where she can just stop Mordekaiser from playing. So she can actually use her W to stop the ultimate from going and generally just not die. So it's a very exciting matchup. Defref seemed to pilot it okay, but we did see Bradley take over the game with the Gwen.
Yeah, and we didn't get to see the beginning part of the replay, which was just Bradley styling on the pick and delaying a lot of time. When Mordekaiser throws out his D to kind of get on top of you, Gwen can actually just completely nullify that with her own W. Like that interaction is I would imagine very difficult for Mordekaiser, especially when he's trying to land his Q. And then flashes over the wall to see if he can get the finishing touch, and that does put him in range for kill when Bethany does come back for the kill on top of the Mordekaiser. So overall, you got to see a little bit of the interaction at the beginning of the game that was not looking good for Defref.
Yeah, and some of that action right off the bat, sure, you're trying to kind of make some speculation into how things are going to go once you get into that team fight territory. And Raz, it does feel like Gwen and her ability to escape some of those targets on her back really had an impact in the team fight.
Yeah, she has quite a little bit of mobility, especially with extra auto attack resetting cooldowner on her E. So like those type of things you have to be aware of. So when University of Toronto, my boys, were getting back into the game, they had an 18-minute team fight that got them back in. I thought I was a believer. Okay, I was ready for the 6 to come through. But when the team fight happened at the top side of the map, Gwen just bought too much time. So like it's a bit sad. But in the end of the day, it felt like Bethany were understanding very well, what play University of Toronto was setting up for. This is the team fight that I was talking about. And if you can just look through the execution, buying a lot of time, also had flash, so she was kiting back on the Thresh.
Yeah, you can just see how slippery she is here. She just can't die based on the enemy team not drafting enough burst damage for her and with her sustain. So it's really interesting to see Bradley pilot the Gwen. It's something feared in the Proving Ground circuit. So I'm curious to see if it'll be banned in the next game.
And it is worth noting that half the equation is, Gwen, Bradley really trying to buy that time for the rest of the team. The other half is the team making it over and following it up effectively. And what better way to display team spirit than all of them on red side, picking red champion skins for their lineup. I mean, TJ, we talked about how the team play is going to be so necessary to come through here. Were you impressed by what Bethany was able to accomplish in that team regard?
Yeah, I think they played pretty well. They had some rotations around. Not too many people were getting out individually caught. They were playing well around vision. So it all made sense. I think that it was a pretty solid performance. So I hope they continue to win the game too.
Yeah, I also thought that we were just talking about the gameplay. Coming into this game, as much as I want to see University of Toronto end up coming out with a victory, at least one game in this series, I agree. Like, Bethany looked like incredibly strong coming into this series. And even off this game, when you saw some plays working out for University of Toronto, it just felt as though it was always happening on the strong side of the map for Bethany, and they were always ready to collapse. I felt like the good collapse that happened towards around Seeker mode, around bot lane, also play to that. Early kills coming in favor of Bethany. So going into the next game, for me, University of Toronto, I just wanted to keep it simple. Play a straightforward team fight heavy composition that we saw from Bethany, and I think they have a chance.
So I actually disagree with that. I would love to see
go.
Toronto pull out I would love to see them pull out the Swain bot lane, the Swain support, or even a Talon. I think that, your back's against the wall. It's your final game. Pull out something spicy to where you can catch the enemy off guard instead of playing a standard front to back.
There we go.
Ooh, all right. That's something that maybe we can look forward to depending on what they pull through. I also just realized that Raz put the jersey over your fancy shirt. I don't know
Yes, I did.
how I vibe with the layering there, but I do appreciate the pride that you are showing for the side of Toronto. They may need some of it going into game number 2. It is only a best of 3 series after all. So Bethany Vikings pulling ahead in game 1, and anyone on the side of University of Toronto, get your hats on just like Raz. Get those jerseys ready because they'll be needing your spirit to move on within this bracket. We'll see you on the other side for more college championship action.
Hey, I didn't order any pizza.
Jake from State Farm. After you saved me so much dough on insurance with that Parker promo, I devised a promo for you.
Here's the deal, Parker. State Farm offers everyone surprisingly great rates.
Yeah, right. Pepperoni pockets, an atomic brownie, cuckoo crusty.
There's no promo, it's just great rates.
And a cider ranch. You're the man.
When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.